But kind of tell us, I mean, like what you're telling me outside about New York. You were in New York for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the big thing that, and we talked about this the other day, the big thing for me in New York, whenever you and I first met that first year,
Yes.
and we talked about you being a runner, and I thought you meant athletically, but you were going to go run a triathlon with me.
Yes, I remember.
I got all excited.
Yes,
And
yes.
you were like, no, Melissa, I'm a runner. Like, I run from God, and I run from life
Yes,
situations and everything.
yes.
Can you talk a little bit about, and at that time in your life, you were really starting to come out of that, to
Yes.
where God was saying, you got to settle.
Yes.
And you began to embrace Him on that.
Yes.
As hard as that was. But, and then what made you come to the place of saying, okay, I quit?
Okay.
Okay, we ready?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Back to it.
Okay.
So I want to ask you about the whole running piece and what you had been running from.
To answer the first question, I was, just picture a wound that's open and festering. And that's who I was. And I was running from pain. Every time I felt uncomfortable in a situation, I felt threatened by pain, emotions I couldn't deal with, I ran. And it started from a little girl. As I said, when I was 10, that was the first time I ran away. Came home, got the mess beat out of me. Went away to Trinidad for some years. I was 13 when I came back. Things happened to me in Trinidad. So when I came back here to America, I had no one to tell what happened because I was confused myself. I wound up having a nervous breakdown at 13. They put me away for a while. And that was more pain on pain. I never got a chance to really cry or you know, mourn anything that I lost in my life. And so I carried that over and over with me. But if I was in a relationship and had trust issues, I would run. I would leave. I would go back and forth here and there. And then my children, I had them in that running lifestyle. So they were never settled. You know, it was always something that pushed me to where I don't want to feel this. I have to escape it. But not realizing that I was taking this pain with me. It wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't going anywhere. You know, I tried to fix it in many different ways, many different relationships and all that kind of stuff. Didn't work. Didn't work. It just seemed like the pain got worse and the running kept on through my 20s, through my 30s, hitting my 40s. And I didn't know what to do. You know, I really couldn't see it. People were saying things like, you need to settle. And every time somebody said that, it would tick me off. You know, settle, what's settling? You know, nicknames like Gypsy or whatever. You know, I took it as a band of honor. You know, yes, I'll go anywhere and do anything. And, you know, I love traveling and stuff like that. And it's okay to love all that stuff. But when you're running, that's a difference. You know, when you can afford to go travel or, you know, invited to different places, that's one thing. But when you're running from life, that's another thing, because you can't run from life. You have to learn how to face it, and I didn't know how to. I'd never really been taught how to. You know, how to stand up and deal with my circumstances or, you know, how to confront issues. I didn't know how to do that.
Did you grow up in a believing home or a non-believing home?
Well, my mother was Catholic, so if you want to say that, it was sort of, she believed in God but didn't know too much about Jesus, you know, baby Jesus and stuff like that. But so I'd say unbelieving, going to church on Easter, stuff like that, you know.
Do you think that you're still running, or do you think that you have been healed of that?
I believe I've been healed because the Lord had a plan for me, and I didn't know. I was trying to figure out my own plan, trying to find my own life where I could be happy, where I wouldn't hurt, and that's unrealistic. Because people don't intentionally hurt you, but in life you're going to have some sort of pain, physical, emotional, and I remember that I started coming into people who were talking about Jesus, and then I had some friends who used to be drug addicts, and then one day they came to my door, and they were clean and sober and, had the Bible. And so I saw them and I let them in. I'm like, okay. The girl's name was Corinne. And she came in and she started talking about the Lord. And she said, Laverna, I've known you for a while. And she said, I believe that God can really, really heal your wounds. And so I listened to her, and I said, all right, but I really didn't take it to heart, really didn't understand what they were talking about until I went to Florida. And I met a lady, she was a counselor, and she took me as her counselee. And for the first 3 months, she just let me cry because I needed to. Sometimes you grow up in a family where they say, stand up straight. What you laughing for? Why are you crying? Don't do this. That's silly. And so you learn to hide these feelings and you just hold them in. But they come out in some form. People can look at your destructive life and see that, something is wrong, even if you can't. So she let me cry, and she held me, and she said that she validated me in a way that she said I didn't deserve what happened to me, that it was wrong, that my mother should have been there. And then we went into my children, and she talked about that, and she didn't make me feel as though everything was right or everything was wrong. She made me feel human, and that it was okay. It was okay to cry, and it was okay to laugh. It was okay to be sad. That wasn't a crime, So after 3 months, she said to me, okay, Laverna, that's enough. Time to grow up. And those were her words to me, time to grow up. And so I said, okay. But then I had to deal with this little girl inside of me who didn't want to grow up. She still wanted to have fun. She wanted to do things she was never allowed to do. She wanted to play. And so we had to work through that because I had children and I had grandchildren. And there's things I couldn't do anymore. I'm looking like a woman on the outside, but I'm still a wounded little girl on the inside. So she talked to me about the Lord, and she told me about Jesus, and she had me read the Bible, and she gave me these studies. She had me in this study for months. And I learned about him, and I learned how, he forgave me, how he loved me, how he accepted me just as I am. I didn't have to, I wasn't fooling him. I didn't have to pretend with him. I could just be myself. I could laugh, I could cry, I could talk to him about anything. And I could go to him and he would answer me. Now that was something. Answer me? How would he answer me? And so she said, Laverna, you have to be still for a while. We're going to keep you still so that you can hear from him. And as much as I still wanted to run, okay, it didn't happen overnight. Sometimes things came up I didn't like, and immediately, because I was uncomfortable, I wanted to, like they say, vacate the premises. I didn't care where I was going. I mean, I could have looked foolish, bag in my hand, walking down the street. I didn't care because I knew of God who had always provided for me. But I didn't know about Jesus who died for me and loved me. And he could take this wound and heal it, and I didn't have to use anything because prior to that, I had been bulimic for 19 years. And while I was in that point in my life, he was healing me from that too. I was still doing it, binging. You know, every time I felt uncomfortable and I couldn't get away, that's what I did. Because, see, that was controlling my life. I get up and I run. I had control then. But when you put me in a place and you say, you can't move, I'm like a baby having a temper tantrum. And the only way I could ease that pain was binging and purging. So I would stuff myself. I was telling somebody the other day, I said I used to eat a big bowl of cereal, have a big box of donuts, eat maybe 6 of those, eat some ice cream, drink some milk, because I'm doing that other stuff to make it easier so I can throw up. So after I do all that, I'd binge, and then I'd purge, and then I'd be like, I'm in control now, I'm back, I got this, you know. But my whole life was destructive. I was still destroying myself, you know, and God showed me that. I didn't read that in a book. He let me know that I was killing myself and that he could not allow this to happen. I had no right to do this to myself. I did not create myself. So what gave me the right to destroy myself? And I had a lot of wounds there, you know, from things that I did. Abortion. I had an abortion, and that like almost destroyed me, because after I did that, I realized that I did something wrong. And so the guilt and the shame, I still carried that too. You know, I had all this guilt and shame. And so it was, you know, when hurting people hurt people. And I was hurting my children. I didn't realize that.